What's up, everybody? I'm here today to review A Ghost Story by director David Lowery. His new film reunites himself, Casey Affleck, and Rooney Mara, who all were together on his film Ain't Nobody Saints back in, I think, 2014. His new film stars Affleck as a struggling musician who, unfortunately, in the very first scenes of the film, dies in a car crash outside of his home. His wife, played by Rooney Mara, goes to the hospital to identify the body, and as soon as she leaves the room, we see Casey Affleck pop back up to life, but he still has the sheet over him. And this is the whole central conceit of this movie that is having people very, very divided. There's the people that think the gimmick is, well, a gimmick, and there's some people that think that it's, although possibly a result of budget constraints, is part of David Lowery's message for the movie, and I'm kind of leaning towards that latter camp. Casey Affleck spends the remainder of the movie, barring a few flashbacks, as a ghost, and instead of using some cheesy special effect like we would normally see in a bigger budget movie, instead, it's an even cheesier special effect, because he has this white sheet over his body with two black eye holes cut out, and it honestly works. Obviously, it's not going for anything even closely related to realism here, but within the internal logic of the film David Lowery's created, it has this sort of grounded, melancholy vibe that you wouldn't get from something that, let's say costs more money, like you would see in last year's Ghostbusters, per se. Part of what makes this film so special is how it plays into the notion of the typical ghost story. And even though maybe the title of the film doesn't change that much, it kind of taps into a vibe, a little vein inside of that story that people don't normally, I guess it's inherent to it, but people don't normally think about it. And that is a little something called time. The concept of ghosts are inherently sad. They're things that were used to be alive and now they're stuck here with very minimal connections to the world. But when is the last time a film made a ghost seem lonely? When's the last time a film made you see from the ghost's perspective and make you really feel for them and try to understand what he's going through? That's what David Lowery does here, and I guarantee you, after seeing this film, you're never gonna watch Poltergeist the same way again. Without giving too much away, there's a scene here that really struck a nerve with me. It's where he encounters this ghost next door, and they have this sort of subtitled conversation, and basically we come to understand that they're here for a reason. They're here because they're waiting for something. They have some sort of unfinished business, but as time goes on and the ages go on and things change and decades and centuries pass, sometimes their duty goes unfulfilled, their wishes go unfulfilled, and they have nothing to do but just sit there and wait. And part of how David Lowery really captures this mood is with these long takes. And this is actually another thing about the film that's been very controversial. There's been a lot of talk about this one specific scene where after he dies, Rooney Mara comes home and eats an entire chocolate pie by herself, and the camera doesn't move an inch. We sit there the entire time and watch her devour this pie. And some people have said it's a little much. And to me, that's a really understandable criticism. I found myself after like 2 or 3 minutes, I was like, just cut to something else, dude. But at the same time, you can't help but understand what he's going for. He wants you to observe her just like Casey Affleck is doomed to observe the world for the rest of his existence. If the goal of the film is to put you in his place, there's really no better way to do it. And you have to applaud David Lowery for taking a chance like that and risking alienating his audience just to really tell his message the way he wants to. Another aspect of the film that I thought was well utilized in some cases, but also less so in others, was the sound design. The score is beautiful, like achingly beautiful, and there's a recurring song in the film that you can't help but feel for the relationship between Affleck and Mara and what could have been and what each of them are feeling when it plays. And it's used a couple times and it kind of builds on each other. Like the first time you hear the song, you get what it's going for. And the second time you hear the song, it's like, oh, it means so much more the second time just because of what the film has done in the meantime. But that also leads to my primary concern with the film in general, and that is there's a couple times where the subtlety is broken and you feel like he's pushing too hard in one direction, and a lot of it is normally because of the dialogue and how strained it feels. One sequence in particular that goes way too long is towards about the 2/3 mark, when there's a character who's just like your typical hipster asshole, and he's giving this speech that at first sounds profound, but the more and more he goes on, it's just like, these people aren't going to shut him up? No one's going to say anything? If it was in reality and this dude is at this party saying this shit, someone's going to slap him. But on top of that, it does the job of conveying the main themes of this movie, but also just being like, hey, did you get it? Did you get it? Hey, are you listening? Do you understand what we're talking about here? Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? And at the end of the day, it's really unnecessary, because David Lowery, with his cinematography and the way he composes imagery, it speaks for itself. I gotta give it to the cinematography of, in my running streak of effing up names, Andrew Praz Delermo. Part of the themes of this film is really developing Place as a character. And part of the way it does that is the camera digs into these tight, dark places, these little crevices in the house where you would never expect a camera to normally go. And what it does is, by developing every inch of this house, it really makes the house its own character. And that's important because you're going to spend the majority of the film there as Casey Affleck's haunting it. While I was watching A Ghost Story, I was constantly conflicted about how I felt. It wasn't exactly peaks and valleys, because there definitely were more highs than lows, but it would be like up, and this is how I'm feeling about the film, and then all of a sudden something would happen, or I would see something, or I would get a certain vibe from the dialogue that just kind of, it brought it down for me. And it would go back up, but then something else would happen, and I was really kind of just divided about how I felt. And truthfully, that leads me to understand why critics were so divided on their opinions on this film. But at the end of the day, I left loving A Ghost Story. I was moved in a way that I kind of haven't been at the cinema this summer. In a franchise-heavy film season like this, I really can't help but appreciate a smaller film like this that can come out of nowhere and give me a feeling that the majority of films rarely can. It's not without its flaws, and I feel like the negatives are going to outweigh the positives for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I loved my time with A Ghost Story, and pie eating scene and all, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. I'm going to give A Ghost Story an 8 out of 10. It's not getting the widest release, so if you see it in a theater near you, check it out. That's it for my review, guys, but you can expect more from me very soon. If you feel like it, like or dislike my video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter. The Twitter handle is going to be over here, and hey, I'll see you later.